And a mother of spares, yeah. Right, we're going to go around the room. Enough of this small talk, as much as I love it. Let's see what we've got.
You keeping that look? Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Good.
Well, yeah, if you find it frustrating, please tell me to change it. That goes to anybody. Let's go around the room. Abdullah Majid, have you got any of those keywords at all? Abdullah Majid, are you with us? Right, fill in the gap, Mike Sheldon. I can see you've unmuted.
Leaders, the first one.
Okay.
Do you want me to go?
Anybody else? No, just hold fire. We'll go around the room. I'll reveal the answers at the end. Okay.
Is it tutors?
Jeremy. Okay, interesting. Tutors isn't as part of. So if you look at the top of the screen, we've got leaders, effective, prioritised, education, safeguarding, times 2, inspectors,
I missed
pandemic.
the most important part. All right, thank you.
Yeah. No worries. That's fine.
I think
That's
I
why we're
prefer
here.
your answer, Jeremy.
Yeah. Yeah. Too right. Too right. Tori, have you got one? I can see you looking intently. You knew I was going to come to you the next, didn't you? You might need to unmute that.
I
Don't worry,
think where am I? Vulnerable learners were was it? I think it's prioritised, but I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right. I haven't actually got the answers in front of me, so we're gonna have to wait till the next slide. But I think you are right. Yeah, that's good. Abby, you're next.
Well, I love that Tori hasn't done it in order, just to confuse things.
I know, my head's all over the place.
So we've got inspectors will consider how leaders and managers adapted approaches to safeguarding.
Good. Pause there. During the, let's go round to somebody who's got their camera off, Beverly Perryman.
I knew you was going to say that. I can't read it, Charlie, because my screen, and I'm just getting used to Teams on this. So basically, it's gone really small, your presentation, and you've gone really big, and then everybody's on the side. So
that's not inclusive, is it?
No. That's better. That's better. Okay, so where are we at then? We are
third one.
Okay. What, during the pandemic?
Boom. I think you're right.
Yep, correct.
And yep. Amy, no worries about your internet dropping. That's absolutely fine. Let's go to someone else with their camera turned off. Martina, can you fill in a couple of gaps?
Hello.
Hello.
Safeguarding procedures remained effective for those receiving remote education as well as those attending the provider.
Perfect. If you stop there, that's good. That's good. Let's move around to someone with a camera on. Shannon Burke.
Attend the provider. Inspectors will discuss how safeguarding arrangements have changed over time.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Inspectors will discuss. And then what's that final word? If anyone else want to just shout out?
Effective.
Effective. Right. Let's see if we're right. There we go. If you match up your own answers, have a read of the screen.
Probably good just to point out the obvious of where this is taken from, Charlie, for one or two that might not know.
Yeah, of course. So this has been taken directly from the Education Inspection Framework. It can be accessed online. I've got the link on the last slide for anyone that goes back and looks at it. It's not a, I wouldn't say enjoyable read, but it is extremely interesting within the industry that we're in to kind of get that broader understanding of why we're here and why we're talking about that. Danny, I don't know if you want to come in there at all, as you are co-deliverer.
Thanks. I am your assistant, mate, LSA, yes. So I'm here to help. In the most layman of terms, this is the answer book. Okay, so for what we do, if we're not quite sure, this is where we get the answers from. This is also, therefore, what the inspectors are striving to see and are requesting to see evidence of and are pushing towards wanting. Whether we agree with it or not, this is what in our society and government education we need to be looking at. And then where we don't fulfill elements of this, we have to provide rationale why. And again, it's all evidence-based.
Absolutely. As you all know, Danny is our safeguarding and prevent guru within SSG. We are his minors, but essentially I'm here to facilitate this delivery today. And when I say facilitate, I mean join in with you. There's going to be, in fact, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, yeah, let's cover the learning objectives in a moment. As per Jeremy quite kindly and described, please just focus on the online safety and etiquette as well. Okay. I need to work on my transitions a little bit better, I think. We are here today to understand the importance of embedding learning on safeguarding and prevent topics within sessions around 4 main outcomes. Okay. This has been designed following a recent Ofsted inspection by from Ofsted to our one of our 5 prime funding agencies, Central Beds College. As you all probably aware, that took place at the end of January. Some interesting themes came out of that. We have always been on top of our safeguarding, prevent British values, equality, diversity, inclusion as well within our learning. What we're going to be discussing today is going to be stuff that you are already doing, but what I want to bring out today is around standardization, the importance of standardization, the importance of what our message is as a collective, as a group. So you know you have the resources available for when you are quizzed by an inspector, as our colleagues, Matt Cheevers and Abby, I don't know what your surname is, apologies. Is it Coleman?
It's Colmar.
Colmar, apologies.
You were very
Abby.
close.
Very, very close. I'll forget that in 2 minutes. Okay, so we are identifying what is expected to be seen, requested from an observation external point of view, small activity around that. We're going to explain why is this an expectation, okay? A small activity around that as well. Describe how you would respond if you were asked. We've picked out some questions that I know for certain that Matt and I were asked in the most recent inspection. But additionally, some findings that we've discovered from recent learning walks from your peers and members of the SLT. And then we're going to look at implementing examples and scenarios of how to fulfill the requirements. And I want to just highlight implement as the command word there, because we have seen some real successes from the command words delivery that took place in January, whereby Steve actually came back and said that the quality of the usage of command words within our education has improved drastically from your sessions that you've delivered, which is absolutely hats off to all of you. So we're going to do something similar towards the back end of this. Okay. Apologies. I've not asked you to rate your understanding of the aims and outcomes of today. What I would like you to do is just pop something into the chat just to make us aware of where you think you are now on these outcomes. Okay, so just do it from an overall score on the aim. So out of 10, please just score yourself from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident individual ever. I could do this delivery with my eyes shut. 1 being, I have no idea what this Muppet is speaking about. Pop that into the chat option for me, please. Who's going to go first? Good work, Martina. First on the board. And you might be sat there thinking, oh, I know some of the outcomes more than others, and that's absolutely fine, but it's that overall aim we're looking for. 5.7, good. Good use of decimal points there, Jeremy, with a bit of embedded maths. Smashing work. There's always one. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Jamie, not a problem.
Yeah, that's fine. 4, not 16, and no probs. Perfect. Okay, cool. I think we've got most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after doing about half an hour's to an hour's worth of research last night, based on the education inspection framework, I wanted to present 5 key findings around what evidence would be inspected by an inspector. Okay, what we saw, I think, within the recent inspection from Ofsted when Central Beds College were inspected, from my perspective and from what we've discussed at multiple levels, including within our team meetings, is that they probably only just touched the surface of what our full inspection will include. And Danny, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but when we do come round to our own Ofsted inspection, we are unaware of when that will be, but likely within the next 6 months, potentially, that they will go a lot deeper, have a lot deeper of a dive within all of our processes, within our delivery. Danny, I don't know if you want to come in there just in terms of an introduction there before I go on to these 5 points.
No, I think you're right there. For the people that have not been included in the new methodology of it, it suits us. Okay, so the one thing that we're not doing here is waving this flag of kind of defiance to Ofsted. The education inspection framework suits our candidates, which then means it suits our delivery. What we are now looking at is the understanding of how they're going to want that evidence portrayed to them, and how they're going to go through their processes. So they do what is very simply known as deep dives. So these deep dives are not about time. They're about going through the layers and through the expected areas into the areas that are quite difficult to kind of get the information standardized. And I use Charlie's words. So for example, they will speak to the candidates, and they'll not just speak to candidates that we offer up. They will speak to anyone they want, and it will be unsupervised, and it will be disruptive, and they'll apologize for that. But what they want to know is, can you give me the evidence that supports these 5 points here, so we can tell you and say you are outstanding? They are not coming to tell us that we are requiring improvement and we're unsatisfactory. And there is a big kind of perception around Ofsted that they come to close, they come to tell what you're doing wrong, and this. They don't want that. They want us to evidence all the amazing work that we're doing. Hence why the word standardization is really, really important, because if we are happy across the board, which I am, and then they'll see one specific topic, and it's done in a different way from here to here, and we have no rationale for that, that isn't consistent, and therefore they'll start to deep dive into that, and they'll dig into that as to why. Okay, and unfortunately, a lot of verbal without any other evidence to support it doesn't cut it. Okay, so it's good that we are having this opportunity to kind of talk at this top level, really.
Thanks, Danny. Right, for producing some outstanding banter in the chat, Matt Cheevers, would you be able to read that first point for us, please?
Thank you, Charlie. You're really helping my man flu today. Number one, evidence to which leaders, governors and managers create a positive culture and ethos where safeguarding is an important part of everyday life.
Excellent. And if you could nominate the second person, we're going to summarise in the next slide.
I like hearing his voice, so it'd be Mike Sheldon.
Love you too. Providers should assume that sexual harassment and sexual violence are happening in the educational setting, even without reports.
Thank you, Mike, and please provide a nomination.
Amy.
Cheers, Mike. 3, identify learners who are at risk of neglect, abuse, grooming, or exploitation.
Thank you, Amy. Please nominate.
Shannon.
4, identify where and how learners can access help if they need it.
Excellent. And please provide a nomination, Shannon.
Danny.
Wow, thanks. Number 5, keep accurate records, making timely referrals to external agencies where necessary.
Excellent stuff. Now my notes have just disappeared on my screen, so I'm just going to go straight to the next slide because I believe what we're going to do next. There we go. Yeah, we're going to go straight to the third point in terms of identifying. Oh no, sorry, apologies. It is the fourth point. Identifying where and how learners can access help if they need it. Okay, we're going to go directly to that point in terms of a standardization perspective. Okay, and we're going to start looking at the reasons why. All right. So what we're going to do first of all, if you can just put in the chat option your identification, and remember, just identify where and how learners can access help if they need it related to safeguarding. So not an explanation, just identify.
DSLs, yeah.
Good. Matty Vine, if you can be more specific with Padlets at all. Good.
Matt saying the same. It's good.
Yeah, Abby, that's it.
Good.
Good. QR codes on display in classrooms for candidates access. Exactly. So we've got that differentiated between virtual delivery and face-to-face delivery as well. That's perfect. And everybody that's just putting DSL in the chat, you're absolutely spot on as well. Just one slight amendment to that. The new terminology is DSO. For everybody's reference, it's now classed as a designated safeguard officer as opposed to lead. Danny, I don't know what the reason is for that, actually. What's the...
So the tip of the arrow is me. So I'm the lead for the company.
There you go.
So the terminology still sits as DSL, but we are so diverse and we're so proactive that we have you guys as the officers that are empowered. And actually you are trained to the level of DSL. But you are then empowered to kind of feed in, make decisions. So we are much more timely, much more accurate. But then the overall responsibility is for me, for the company.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Okay. So you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there in terms of identifying where and how our learners can access the support if we need it. But what I want to do is look at the why. Okay, come back to the original outcomes. Okay, these 4 areas of I've kind of identified as why we need our learners to access that help. What will come onto, I think, in slide 12 is in the education inspection framework, or in a recent report, I think it was actually, Ofsted identified that a lot of teachers, a lot of tutors, educators, providers actually saw safeguarding and prevent as a tick box exercise, which I'm sure we've probably all felt before as well. Around, I remember when I posted the candidate notice board and induction checklist on Mike's Google Classroom about 4 weeks ago. He called me up. He's like, why are you doing that? Are you just ticking a box and just having a bit of a joke around? And nothing against what Mike was saying at all. But what we really want to start doing is making sure that there's actual impact from it, and that we're really understanding why we're doing it, and our candidates are also understanding why as well. Okay, so what I'd quite like to do, and hopefully my transitions are going to work here. Yes, yeah, that's right. So I just want you to take 2 minutes to, and I'm going to come back to, I can't see anybody again, which is dreadful. I want you to take 2 minutes to explain why these points are expectations of educators. So why do we need to be doing these things to embed safeguarding and prevent within our sessions? Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is if you scored yourself under 3 or under, okay, I want you to provide the explanation for this first point. So candidate peer-to-peer support. Okay, if you scored yourself between 3 and 5, please explain the efficiency and effectiveness of our support. Okay, if you scored yourselves between 6 and 7, please explain safeguarding as everyday life. And if you scored yourself 8 or above, I don't know if there was anybody, I might come to Danny for that one. I want you to explain preventative approaches, and then we're just going to discuss those points as well. Okay, so just take 2 minutes, write it down in a bit of paper in front of you on your phones or whatever you need to, and then I'm going to come round and nominate a few people. You can see the answers. That's really frustrating. It's such a challenging task to navigate Teams and PowerPoint with just one screen, isn't it? It really does test you.
Have you done this? Have you tried splitting the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still quite small, isn't it, when you go through it? If you want me to help with the PowerPoint, I'm on 2 screens, if it helps.
It's all good. And whilst everybody's writing, I'm just going to read Jenna's point out. So I ask candidates this question frequently when observing sessions, and the most common answer is their tutor. Yeah, I'm glad you've mentioned that, Jen, actually, as well, because we're going to come on to that in the next couple of slides about some really key evidence we found from that. So we can have an open discussion around that, which is important. They rarely mention the Padlets, notice boards, just something to think about, as often would likely ask this question. Absolutely, we're going to cover that. I mean, this is the purpose for why we're here today as well, around that standardization. So we're going to set some really clear messages for everybody from today. But yeah, thanks for putting that there, Jen. Okay, so we're just rounding up. I'm just going to nominate a few people. So I'm going to speak with Hope, if possible. I'm then going to speak with the Mike as number 4. I'm then going to go to Martina for the top one, and then for the final one we'll just discuss as a group, I think.
Can we get the PowerPoint back up?
You absolutely can.
Thank you.
Charlie, Hope's lost her voice.
No, that's not good. Shannon, you have just done a cracking job and nominated yourself, which is great. So thanks for being such a great colleague.
Differently. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, Shannon, which one were you going through?
I did the efficiency and effectiveness. I scored myself a 5.
Okay, go for it. What's your explanation?
I focused a lot around accessibility, so making sure that the candidates are aware of the sources available to them and that they can get them as immediately as they feel ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just such a quick transition of where do I need that support? For example, if I know it's happened before, but if we're looking at a candidate that potentially is being groomed, certainly possibly more common in a face-to-face environment, could be happening externally in a virtual environment as well. Whilst they might immediately contact their parents or carers, or they might end up going to the police, it's important to recognise that they have that support system in place at SSG. If they are in our duty of care, in our loco parentis, then they need to be able to access something really promptly and quickly for our support. They might not necessarily be straight away thinking about Emma's in a meeting, Shannon's in a meeting, X, Y, and Z, but they know where to access that guidance and support if they did have any of those concerns. Yes, if it's an emergency, they might obviously decide to go in a different route, but it's so important to have that standardized practice in there. So yeah, thanks for that, Shannon. I'm going to go straight to Martina, and I'm going to go to the top one because my transitions won't work otherwise. So Martina, if I can come to you, if you wouldn't mind explaining the candidate peer-to-peer support, if possible.
Well, I assume, this is just a guess, that if we let everyone know what they can use to like help each other, I guess. Like, I don't know, I'm not really sure because we can't really control what the candidates do, if that makes sense. But if we can let them know what is there to help, then they can maybe help each other by sharing that information.
Really good explanation. Yeah, absolutely. So it might be a case that candidate might not be comfortable going to one of their tutors or staff members at SSG. Therefore, they need to go to their peer who they've got a good relationship with. And that peer also needs to have the understanding of where they need to go. And they might just say, right, we'll just go to the candidate notice board and induction checklist, essentially. OK, so exactly what we've just said there, Martina. And yeah, be confident in your answer because that was absolutely spot on.
I'll just jump in on that, Charlie.
Go for it, Danny.
Just a little bit, mate. I think sometimes we see within, especially peer groups, that they don't necessarily realise that they're in a vulnerable position. So they're almost kind of not necessarily seeing the seriousness of where they are, and one of their peers may well. So having that kind of support around them to then be able to go and speak to one of you guys on behalf of, to raise, that has happened several times in the past, where concerns of friends, and they've approached us because they don't know how to speak to their friend, because they don't want to upset them, they don't want to push them further away, they don't want to be seen as kind of not holding their trust. So they'll come and take advice from us to then go back to their friend, and that is a real good opportunity for all of us, especially in the efficiency and effectiveness, to be able to use that peer as a tool, because the message is straight away, get them to come and speak to us. Okay, yes, we'll give them information to relay back, but there's always a strong message of and return back to us, so we can then get involved and support them. But you're right, Martina.
And just moving on to Shannon's point, as you explained, in terms of that quick access, no matter their location or delivery method as well. It's about that delivery method. We should be treating our virtual candidates exactly the same as our face-to-face candidates. Okay. Oh, I've skipped ahead. Right, Mike, I think you were potentially safeguarding his everyday life, or were you a different one?
No, I was efficiency, and it literally, it's just exactly what was said. Ease of access to contact info 24/7.
No probs. All right, thanks, Mike. Who did I nominate for safeguarding his everyday life? Please help my short-term memory. Did I go to?
I can go for it if you want. I can help you out.
Go for it, Danny.
Yeah, I can help you out just to keep momentum. Within what we're talking about with everyday life is we go through very systematically and look at topics. We have things that are set in stone. We have got the support. We've got everything there that should be there and more. Okay. We're so proactive in the approach that you guys do, and we're wanting to support. In fact, we actually go looking for that to help them even more. But, and that's a really important 3-letter word, how do our candidates of all ages apply that to everyday life, to when they walk in and they're sat on the bus, to overhearing conversations, to a friend at a party that's talking about something, to somebody emailing them or contacting them online. How can they then apply what we do into their everyday life, which is almost a mundane life? It's a normal life. And how can they pick out those points which are actually creating a vulnerable situation, and especially around the prevent agenda, around where we are now looking at the lack of subtlety around it. It is brash and it is upfront, and it's almost acceptable by certain aspects of our society and community, and it's not acceptable. So challenging that in their everyday life is really, really important, and it's right up there with what Ofsted want to know, because they will ask them, they will give them hypotheticals.
Absolutely, thanks, Danny. I am going to proceed because I do want to move on to the next task as well, and I think we're grasping this concept absolutely fine. So yeah, in terms of preventative approaches as well, just to read what's on the screen, safeguarding is effective. Okay, providers have a responsibility to notice and identify candidates at risk of harm, neglect, or abuse to prevent concerns from escalating. Okay, so this is part of outcome 3 and just part 1 of that. Okay, we, as we mentioned, went through an Ofsted inspection in partnership with our prime funders, Central Beds College. Okay, I've put on the screen 5 questions that were asked, and these questions will be asked to you as a tutor, as a staff member. We don't know who it will be, but they will be asked. So what we want to do is just provide some guidance around that. Now, when you're in that spotlight, it's a very high pressure situation, and it could be sometimes easy to just forget what's going on. And you are, I mean, we're all confident with everything that you do. We see it day in, day out, and we want to champion what you are constantly doing. So this is going to be a case of just embedding and almost reassuring your confidence and knowledge around that. And some of these questions are fairly straightforward to answer as well. Okay, some may be a little bit more complicated. All right. I've also included some questions that might be maybe outside of safeguarding and prevent as well, just because I want you to be aware and be ready of that as well. Okay, so again, I just want you to provide, give yourself 1 minute. Again, get your bit of pen and paper out and just write down what you would potentially, maybe 3 key words around some of these questions, about what you would potentially answer. And then I'm just going to come round and ask for some 5 nominees about how you would answer these questions. Okay. Matt, I'm going to specifically come to you for the 4th point in terms of what impact is your learning having on your candidates, because I want to champion your candidate Shay as well, but also the evidence that was provided around that. So just have that in mind, and then we'll come to some other people that maybe haven't spoken yet. Okay, just finish what you're doing. Okay, let's start with a simple one. Sometimes it's the simple ones that do throw us off. Okay, Matty Vine, I'm coming to you first.
We are doing it on Excel online, but also we have paper copies as well that we take into lessons. That's for each session that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just a point on there. So obviously the register, you can demonstrate this register privately to an inspector, but don't share with other candidates due to GDPR and contact details. So just do be cautious of that as well. Okay, Matty, can you nominate someone for point 2, please?
Jeremy.
Go for it, Jeremy.
So point 2, yeah, what are you doing to support candidates that are behind target or not attending? I thought there's offers of one-to-one support. There's sending the materials to them, but also there's contact from phone, email, because you get some candidates that are just not engaging. So what I do is just try to contact them. If they're not answering, leave messages, not incessantly, just leaving messages, letting them know when I'll contact again, some text messages, email. When I do eventually get through, just saying about, one-to-one sessions. Don't worry if you don't feel left behind, can bring you back up to speed. Let's arrange a one-to-one session, the next day. In the meantime, there's materials being sent out. Everything we can, really. Those are the main things that came to mind, though. Pointing to Google Classroom, where the materials and recordings are uploaded as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for that, Jeremy. I heard the chat option, but I can't actually see it at the moment. Does anybody have access to just read that out for us?
Sorry, Charlie, it's
Okay,
me. I'm
right.
monitoring it. Yeah, we'll
No
pick
worries.
up at it towards the end. But
Yeah,
yes,
no
question.
probs. Yeah, exactly that, Jeremy. So we've highlighted additional one-to-one support, contacting via email, phone call, and Google Classroom to get back on track. Additionally, referring back to our program trackers is always going to be extremely key, and showcasing that to an inspector. On top of that, one thing that we are looking to standardise as well, and I would like to get some additional feedback and from you all around this as well, is around learning support for outreach candidates. It's something that Danny and I have discussed, yet to implement, but Shannon and I are going to be meeting soon to discuss that additional support. So then all tutors, no matter where you're based, have access for your candidates to attend a session to assist them on their additional learning needs, or that are potentially behind target as well. So I'm not going to ask for feedback now, but we will be asking for that feedback about implementing that and how best to effectively implement that for all candidates. Okay, and again, standardising and replicating what is potentially happening across areas. Show me where your candidates are at within their learning. Jeremy, would you just be able to quickly nominate somebody?
Tori.
Go for it, Tori.
Sorry, I've got a toddler screaming. So where your candidates are with their learning, they've got files. I only know from Bedford Centre. 1 minute. They've all got their own files with all their work, their units, what's been assessed, what not's been assessed. And then as extra work, so like PD work and everything, Shannon made some files, which everything that's been completed has all been put into files in her cabinets.
Absolutely. Yeah, so in terms of demonstrating your folders, your SharePoint folders, your program tracker, program planners, really key examples in terms of this is exactly where that candidate is, and this is exactly what's happening to get them back onto Classroom as well, and potentially demonstrating some usages of your Classroom and resources to demonstrate that impact as well. Okay. I also want to just add in terms of how we're embedding this within safeguarding as well. There are candidates that are behind target that do have safeguarding barriers. Then it's going to be important for us to focus on what we're actually doing to get those candidates back on track and what additional support is going in behind the scenes to support them as well. So yeah, thanks for that, Tori. I'm going to go straight.
Sorry,
to
can I just add on that? Sorry. With a lot of students that have like difficulties and stuff, we like as LSAs, Shannon came up with mentoring logs, and they're all in files as well, so that when they want to know exactly what we're doing to support them to catch up, it's all on there as well.
That's absolutely fantastic evidence. Really, really strong to showcase the impact behind that for your candidates. Have you seen that have a benefit within your learning at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. Not just for student-wise, but for me, I speak for myself, obviously. Me learning for myself on which areas I need to improve with as well. and it's helping my confidence grow as well. So I think that will help a lot with everyone else as well.
Really, really good point. Yeah, thanks ever so much for sharing that, Tori. That's great. If I move on to Matt Cheevers, what impact is your learning having on your candidates? Something that was asked.
Yeah, so in the case there, it was the Step into Self-Employment course that we were running. So I made it clear that at the start of the course, we talked about what the challenges and the barriers were for the individuals in terms of starting their own business or growing their own business. So that gave us a way in which we could track the progress that we were making and the impact we were having. And then what we did is we talked about a couple of specific examples from 2 of the different courses where individuals were trying to launch their own business but needed my support or our support to make key decisions about how they took those products to market. And one of those we used was an example about a brand called Pump Munch, which I always have to say very carefully.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and it was extremely important because we were able to share the PDRs, any specific needs that learner had, and the impact from the exit survey and follow-up resources from the website that he had actually then gone and created. And I know we're deviating slightly from safeguarding, but I did want to include that because it was asked by an inspector within the same areas of questioning as well. Okay. I'm going to move on promptly with this one, actually, just because I'm conscious of time in terms of how do you keep your candidate safe online. Okay, again, just be very proactive with the candidate notice board and induction checklist as well. Okay, around what our positive cultures are and really refer back to that as well. Okay.
Just want to point the obvious out, Charlie, with all those points, all those questions. It's great. We're all saying the same things. It seems like we're going in the same line. As they did, they will always do, and people in quality, your line managers, will then go and ask the candidates. So can the candidates regurgitate that? Can they confidently put it in their own language and say, yes, I sit down and do a mentor log, and this is helping me do this because of this reason? Can they just naturally talk about it because therefore it happens all the time and it's the norm? And that's what they want to hear, the consistency. Do you know what I mean? When we go chasing people who are behind target, myself, an Ofsted inspector, I want you to tell me why, first of all. Do you know what I mean? The expectation of the phone calls, yes, great, emails, we go above and beyond, which is fantastic. But what is the driver? Why do you think? So when you get into contact with them, it's SSG's viewpoint to find out what's going on. Then we can support you to then catch up. Because when that is very much a safeguarding angle where somebody will get lower and lower and lower into a situation, and then they'll think, I can't come back because I'm too far behind, and then they can't access the support. Sorry, just to say, Matt, have you got your hand up? Sorry. What is it meant to be?
Yeah, sorry, it's not to do with safeguarding, but it's just one other thing I thought of, Danny, that stuck on my mind after speaking to the inspector, and that was that they wanted instant access to Google Classroom, and they wanted to see active comments where people have been submitting work, that I'd been commenting on each piece of work, giving them feedback, and that was probably one area where I think we've done really well on, because we were at that point in the course where I'd done a lot of feedback on there.
Definitely, and that's echoed throughout, and it has been the case for a long time, but it's becoming a more primary source of evidence for progression now, whereas in the past it was very much data orientated and end success and all the rest of it, whereas now they want to see messy handwriting turning into neat handwriting, and then comments from yourselves on how to improve that. They want to see people, hear people saying, I couldn't spell and now I can spell. They want to, do you know what I mean? The most basic of basic things that, to be honest, we all, including myself, take for granted. The reading, the push that we're on now for reading is because it is an underlying factor, and it will be in everything. Okay, so they may well challenge, where can they access this support? So we say Padlet, that was a massive box ticked, that's fantastic. Expect a comment of, what if they can't read it? What then? So, and that's their job, to stress test what we say. But 100% agree, the shift from where we were pre-pandemic to where we are now is just exponentially grown. The use of Google Classroom is just amazing. What we're now doing is, can we go from good to outstanding? Can we, rather than having it on Google Classroom, can we have certain things really pushing in their face on their landing page? Can we have that feedback exactly where we know it is, so none of you feel under pressure to be scrambling? Because we know it's been done. It's just how many clicks of a button does it take to be able to feel confident that it's been done all the time? Okay, but yeah, I agree, Matt. Yeah.
And yeah, completely agree. It all comes back to why we're doing this. It comes back to the impact it's having on the candidate. Certainly from my personal perspective about why we're doing this, it's not sorry Dan, sorry Danny, it's not to get SSG a good grade with Ofsted. It's to actually help that learner. It's to actually make a real difference as to what they're doing, why they're receiving feedback, what areas do they need to develop, because that's going to get them a job. And we have seen that in abundance of evidence from work ready programs in the last few months, and we'll continue to see that as well. Exactly the example that Matt gave, that's the feedback that Matt provided during that program gave that candidate the job. That's why we're doing this. And it comes back to everything from well-being to 16 to 18s, about persisting with attendance. That is why we're doing it. Okay,
100%, totally agree. And therefore we know what we're going to be judged on. They give us the answers. They know, they're telling us what they'd like to see. They don't tell us how to show it them, because that's down to us to be organic, and that's where we can support our candidates in the SSG way, but they are going to want to see it. So having no cameras on, do you know what? Great, because it supports our wellbeing candidates to engage in learning. What isn't great is when we haven't got a rationale to prove that, because we all know it and we all live in SSG, but people that make judgments on us don't. So we have to paint that picture, and it sits with me, and then it sits with managers, but it's grown from you guys. Because again, you're saying, perfect example, by making, which we never do, people turn on their cameras, that will put a barrier to learning, they will go. Okay, there's no way on this earth we know that we're going to do that. But what we are going to have to be acceptant of is we need to evidence the reason why they don't. And if they're not doing that, what are they doing to prove engagement, to demonstrate progression within those lessons, to actually show that they are developing within personal development and behaviors and attitudes at the same time as they are progressing in their learning, i.e. they're not sat in their pajamas in bed, or they're not in a certain environment where they shouldn't be. Okay, good. Sorry, yes, Jeremy.
Has Jeremy got a point?
Yeah, it's got a quick point on that actually, Danny. So back the cameras off then, just because it's so pertinent to wellbeing. So could I say the group profile, basically for someone to have the camera off, that would be off because it would be in the group profile. On the group profile, I would have chatted to the candidate, found out that it could be an anxiety trigger for them. So I would have just, okay, we'll have the camera off. Maybe I've discussed about a goal for them for the future, but it would definitely be on the group profile. Would that be okay can that be taken into account from Ofsted? Would they direct it to the group profile and think, okay, the conversation's been had, the tutor is aware why the camera's off, and the candidate has also been able to communicate why they'd prefer the camera to be off? Would that be useful?
Yes, it would. Short answer, yes, it would. We need more for that. So it's not Jeremy needs to do more. It's we need to provide more as a department to say our rationale around this type of course is encouraging this type of candidate, and the end outcome is this, this, and this. So you said a key word there, which is goal. Okay, so if somebody is coming in not being able to read, and we may say, right, we would not target reading questions to you, we will help by reading for you and discussing. Would we say that's acceptable to be doing that at the last day of the course? Probably not, because we haven't shown the progression. So the real important part of this is having that first point of call saying the purpose of this course is X, Y, and Z. We want to see a shift in behavior, attitudes, and professional developments. The world of work wants to see your face. The world of this, the industry you're going into, whatever it may well be. Our goal is by 20% of the course, you're going to open your mic. By 40% of the course, you're going to say hello at the beginning, once, and then at the end. By 70% of the course, I'm going to encourage you to dial in at least once a week fully. And then what you can do is you can revisit that and go, flipping heck, you've had your camera on all the time for the last 2 days, and we're only halfway through the course. You've smashed that target. Amazing. How? Why? What have you done to get to that point? Because then that is tangible progression, and we can show that. It's not basically you're suffering at the minute, so we're just going to leave you there. We are being challenged constantly around progressing people. And I'm going to help you all, for all the people that are screaming at me in your heads now. We cannot show progression for somebody who is in a dark place if we do not identify how dark it is. And that's where it all comes down to, that we need to have that initial point of reference to be able to then say that ever so minuscule progression from there in whoever's eyes is massive for that candidate, and we're very proud of it. But if we don't have the accuracy at the very beginning standardized, then it's difficult to kind of discuss, because we end up talking about every individual candidate every individual time, and they want a little bit more of a standardized approach, which we've got. Do you know what I mean? Nobody is doing anything wrong right now. We're good. I believe we're good. What we do need to do is just tighten up on a little bit here and there in preparation to be able to enjoy an inspection, because we're going to be celebrating all the good stuff. We want our candidates to repeat the language that you guys use. Why? Because they've not just been told on their induction. They show a PowerPoint, we told them on the first day, oh, they know it now. No, nobody can retain information like that. So are we revisiting it? If we are, why? And is everybody doing it? Is Danny Burt not doing it because I'm over here and I haven't got the tools to do it? And if that's the case, we need to work on that. But it all boils down, like you said there, to I've spoken with that person. You then add those goals in, you then revisit those goals to make sure that we are on a tangent, we are increasing, we're not dipping, or we're not stagnant. Is that okay? Cool. Sorry, Charlie.
No problem at all. Right, I'm going to just break practice a bit and whiz through the next few slides, because I do want to get to the follow-up point, because I do need to finish at 1:45. So as I'm just flicking through these, I think it's just important for me to just pause there for a moment. These are some findings from quality assurance learning walks that have taken place based on a sample of 5 candidates from an anonymous program. Okay, so we are more regularly going around and speaking to your candidates on an individual basis to ensure that they are supported as part of quality assurance processes. And we just wanted to give you an idea around that. So whilst when asked, do you feel safe whilst learning at SSG, we've recognised that all candidates that were asked from those 5 felt safe whilst learning at SSG, which is hats off to you following learning walks. When asked, do you know where you would go if you had any concerns or issues whilst learning, the majority of candidates stated they would speak to their tutor, as Jen mentioned earlier, but were unaware of the term safeguarding, and more so with prevent, which leads me on to my follow-up action and task. Okay. Candidates were asked, do you know what stage you're at within your learning? Candidates had some idea about career progression, however, most understood learning objectives. So it's a case around that progressive element that we possibly need to work on a little bit more. What impact is the programme having with your learning and development? some really good examples that we've already discussed around step into self-employment and PDRs. Please keep focusing on the PDRs, because we're able to evidence them a lot at the moment. And what opportunities are provided at SSG? There wasn't any data for that at the moment, but that is something that will be asked moving forward. Okay, I am going to move on straight away because, like I said, I do want to get to the next point. Okay, I'm going to skip past this. I will put the candidate notice board and induction checklist in the group chat. Okay, just make sure that you have that to your own access and is accessible for all candidates at all times. And I want to just give you a bit of a challenge to include that within your sessions around every other session that you deliver. Okay, and just embed that within your session. That's your challenge. Okay, there we go. I'm getting ahead of myself. Charlie, please work on your transitions. Okay, possibly including it as like a starter task as well. Right, what I wanted to do was just focus on prevent as a bit of a follow-up task to demonstrate that impact. Okay, and this is related to, like we said at the start of the session, around Steve providing some really positive feedback for everyone around the quality of work has increased following our command word CPD, which is really good. So just, yeah, well done to everybody for implementing that, because it will have that follow-up impact. So the reason why we're doing this is exactly from the findings within the learner walk and the candidate voice that we've completed. Also, the Department for Education state in the Prevent and Counter Extremism in General Further Education Colleges report back in 2018, that Ofsted felt that many providers saw their prevent duties as little more than a tick box exercise, which I believe we don't, because it's exactly why we're doing this. And did not regard it as an important part of their responsibilities towards learners. And senior leaders approached basic mandatory prevent training for staff as, again, a tick box exercise to evidence implementing the duty of Ofsted inspections. Again, I don't believe we're doing that, because this is exactly why I really wanted to focus on this specific task about what you're doing and champion that as well. Okay, I'm not going to play this video, but again, like the resources will be made available after this session. Okay, what I want you to do is exactly like you implemented with the command words. I want you to plan a 5 to 10 minute starter activity over the next working week that you can implement for your candidates to teach the importance of prevent at grassroots level. And the essentials from your session needs to include the definition of prevent, where to access the support for prevent even, and finally, a practical activity to understand the importance of prevent at grassroots level, us being that grassroots level. Okay, so if you can just have take a photo of this screen for me, because I think it will be really beneficial to see evidence of this and see this in action, and again champion the work that you're doing exactly like we saw from the command words areas. Okay, because SLT, and we might do it from a peer-to-peer perspective as well. We will go around and speak to candidates again and just see what else we need to do to support our candidates. Again, not to make it a tick box, but to have that impact on candidates and really preventing that. And I wish we had time to showcase that video around prevent examples, which is what that video
says. Help me out, Charlie. These presentations always, as you know, go on our quality YouTube channel to be watched back. The presentation slides themselves, any additional notes, will go onto our quality Padlet, so you can access them as well to any links or any other access. So go on there and watch that video, go and use those links. There's only one word I would add to that end task, and that is every day. Link it to their every day. So not just what they do at SSG, not just what they do when they're with the brand, but their everyday life. Their family, their friends, when they're on their own, when they're in public, when they're in private venues, whatever it may well be, everyday life, how do they apply that? Okay, because then that makes it real, and it may be talking about something that's happened recently, and it doesn't always have to be a negative, by the way. I know that's a lot of negative, unfortunately, around Prevent. But I have, granted, quite old, but 2, 3, 4 years old, but I do have resources available, central, if you want to show a video, if you want to show a case study of negative to positive. But yeah, just think about your candidates every day. Charlie, great idea, because that then becomes a pool of resource. And the next 3, 4 weeks time after delivering that, you don't need to plan another one, because you might go and share it from your colleague and you pass that. So if we pool all those in, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, thanks ever so much for everyone attending today. Apologies, I've rushed out at the end, breaking delivery. But yeah, thanks ever so much, and we'll see you in the next delivery.
We've got a break now. What is it? 12.